I'm Hannah Le, and I never thought I'd beg for a job until my mom collapsed in the kitchen the same day I got my 27th rejection email. Stage 5 kidney failure. They said, dialysis, 3 times a week. The cost way beyond anything a fresh college grad could afford. I needed health insurance and I needed money. Fast. I knocked on every corporate door I could find, applied for everything from HR to yes, even front desk receptionist. Finally, a call came from Arkin & Cole, a commercial real estate giant with offices nationwide. I was one of 4 interns selected. They said if I performed well, I'd be considered for a full-time position with full benefits. I cried when I read the offer. I even knelt down and kissed my mom's hand, like a child who finally brought something home. That joy. It lasted less than 6 hours on the job. The office on the 18th floor looked like something out of an art exhibit. Every light bulb cast the kind of glow that made your insecurities scream. On my first day, I got pulled aside into HR. A woman in a red blazer, lipstick sharp as a blade, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Top interns get tested. Richard Martin. Our EVP wants you to assist him personally this week. Think of it as an observation trial. You understand? Don't you?" I didn't, but I nodded. My first day assisting started with standing outside his office for an hour while he had a meeting with a woman in a white satin nightgown. When the door cracked open, she had a cigarette between her lips, his. I looked away, ears burning. The HR woman just shrugged. She's a model for the campaign. You'll get used to it. That afternoon, Richard told me to accompany him to a client meeting. At a bar, I asked to be excused. My mom had dialysis and needed a ride home. He stared at me like I was trash. First day and already asking favors. We don't need interns who lack flexibility. Then he turned to his assistant and said, "Reassign her to admin. Let her make coffee until she learns her place." And just like that, I became the coffee girl. Word around the office was I'd fallen from favor for acting like a princess. Some said I played hard to get or tried to sleep her way in and failed. Every time I walked into a meeting with a tray of coffee, the men smirked like I was naked, like I was a joke. I wanted to quit, but I couldn't. My mom started coughing up blood. The doctors said unless she was admitted for continuous dialysis, her lungs would begin to fail. I had to stay. In the 3rd week, Richard sent me a calendar invite, prep materials, 10 p.m., Fairlane Hotel, conference room. Alarms lit up in my head. I called to confirm. No answer. His assistant just texted, "Just go. Don't upset him." I wore a long-sleeved shirt, black slacks, brought my laptop hoping it really was a late-night meeting. But when I arrived, the room had a half-empty bottle of wine, dim lights, and a laptop already playing someone else's presentation. Richard stepped out of the bathroom wearing nothing but a towel. "I want to see how you handle pressure," he said, stepping closer. I raised my arm. Firm. I'm not that kind of girl. Take one more step and I scream. He stopped, smirked. "You'll regret this." I ran out of that hotel with my heart pounding like a war drum. Was I walking away from the only shot I had to save my mom? Or was I choosing myself? Just this once, I didn't know then that what I'd lose would be even worse. The next morning, I was summoned to HR. They showed me a grainy hotel camera image clipped to the moment I exited the room looking flustered, shirt wrinkled, hair a mess. Richard claimed I'd shown up uninvited, disturbing a key client who was staying on that floor. An internal email got leaked. It accused me of using seduction to attract attention. And just like that, from coffee girl, I became the slut who couldn't even seduce her way up in everyone's eyes. This time, no one laughed, because I was crying. I couldn't walk back into that building after what happened. The rumors spread like mold on damp walls, fast, rotten, and impossible to contain. Every time I checked my phone, there was a new, anonymous message, "Nice performance." But who's gonna believe a broke girl had any business being at a 5-star hotel at midnight? I've got the raw photo. Want it deleted? DM me a price. Heard Richard's bored with you. Might set you up again for fun. I shook, not from fear but from helplessness. If I spoke up, they'd call me dramatic. If I stayed silent, I became the villain. No one, No one stood by me. Then came the internal memo. Intern Hannah Lowe has been indefinitely suspended for serious violations of conduct. I had lost everything, my one shot to save my mom, and the last shred of dignity I'd been trying to hold on to. I knocked on the door of a public interest lawyer. He gave a half smirk and said, "No evidence. If you had audio, video, hidden cameras maybe. But right now, it's just your word. And he's the executive VP. All I had were memories. And one unshakable truth: I couldn't let this be the end of my story." I went back to Arkin and Cole headquarters. No one stopped me, they didn't have to. I wasn't staff anymore. I sat for hours in the cafe across the street, documenting who went in, who left, the timing of meetings, patterns of each department. I hired a freelance hacker, a broke but brilliant IT student who agreed to help in exchange for enough to pay his dorm fee. A week later, he found a data chain on the company's backup server, deleted emails, long wiped from public access. Among them was a string of messages between Richard and HR: "Clean her file before the CEO gets back. Don't let him see she was ever on the talent shortlist. Don't worry, removed her from every intern assignment record. She's just coffee girl, now literally." I went still. Turns out, I'd been handpicked. Selected personally by the CEO under a talent scout initiative backed by the board. My sister, the one I lost in a car crash 3 years ago, used to be one of his most trusted advisors. I was her only surviving sibling. That's how I made it onto the list. And Richard knew. From the start. He cut me down the moment I walked in. I kept digging. This time, I tracked down a former tech contractor, the guy who used to service the surveillance system at the Fairlane Hotel. I gave him the last $300 in my account for one unedited recording. It was all there, me arriving on time, entering the room with my laptop, Richard stepping out of the bathroom in a towel, me standing up, holding him off, him stopping, visibly caught off guard, me walking out calm and clear-headed. Hours later, Richard called the front desk, requested deletion of the hallway footage, and submitted a shortened clip to HR. I clutched the USB stick in my palm, heart pounding so hard it hurt. There was no doubt now. It hadn't just been harassment, it had been a calculated takedown. I emailed the footage and the email thread to the CEO's liaison office address, pulled from the original talent recruitment memo my hacker found. I didn't expect much. Maybe someone would read it. Maybe someone would remember I was supposed to be part of their future. I didn't know if anyone would respond, if anyone would dare stand up to Richard. But then, 3 days later, a sleek black car pulled up in front of my apartment. A man in a gray suit stepped out and introduced himself as the CEO's senior advisor. He didn't say much, just handed me a thick envelope. Inside, a handwritten letter from the CEO himself and an invitation. I'd been summoned to attend a high-level internal summit scheduled for 3 days later. I didn't even finish reading the letter, because the very first line made me cry. "I made a promise to your sister, and I won't let anyone dishonor her or anyone who bears the name Le." I stood in front of the mirror, hands trembling as I adjusted the collar of my white blouse. The navy pencil skirt had been ironed the night before. My hair was pulled back in a low, neat bun, professional, but not cold. I didn't want to look like them. I didn't want to become a reflection of the very people who once humiliated me. The Arkin and Cole building gleamed just as it had the first day I walked in. But this time, I wasn't taking the service elevator. I was met in the main lobby by a male assistant in a tailored suit, a name tag that read "Executive Affairs" pinned to his chest. He gave a respectful nod. "Ms. Le, this way. Please." The meeting begins in 15 minutes. The 24th floor was a place no intern ever reached. It was sacred ground reserved for the investment board, accessible only through encrypted elevators used by the CEO and top shareholders. The doors opened, and silence fell over the walnut-paneled boardroom. 12 men and women sat around a round table, notepads closed, eyes forward. At the center sat Paul Reddington, the CEO of Arkin and Cole. His silver hair gleamed like frost under the lights, tall, regal, but sharp-eyed, like nothing ever got past him. He turned his chair toward me and said simply, "Please, Ms. Take a seat." I walked forward, every step a battle to keep my heart from exploding. "I've reviewed the video. And the email chain," he said, cutting straight through the air. "Our legal team has confirmed the authenticity. What angers me most isn't that it happened, but that it happened under our nose." The room stayed dead quiet. "I made a promise to your sister, Emily, that you'd have a place in our executive development program, but it seems some middlemen crushed that promise before it ever saw the light of day." I couldn't speak. My throat closed up. "Mr. Reddington pulled a contract from his leather briefcase. "Ms. Hannah Lee, as of this moment, your record is officially reinstated. You are appointed to the position of Special Internal Auditor, reporting directly to myself and the board." Before I could even react, he slid another envelope across the table. "And this is your prepared statement, which you'll deliver at today's emergency all-staff meeting." I looked up. "You mean I have to tell them everything?" He gave a small, deliberate smile. "No, you're allowed to tell them everything. 4:00 p.m. The conference room on the 18th floor, once the place where I scrubbed coffee mugs and served pastries, was now packed to capacity. The sterile lights cast hard shadows across confused, uneasy faces. Richard walked in last, that crooked little smirk still painted across his mouth. But the moment he saw me standing at the front of the room, his face froze. "What is this?" he barked, spinning to his assistant. "Why is she here?" I didn't blink. I placed my fingers gently on the laptop. Slide 1, the emails between him and HR. Slide 2, the full hotel video. Slide 3, me walking out of that room, fully clothed, calm, untouched. The room fell into a vacuum, and then I spoke clear, deliberate, not a single word wasted, no tears, no dramatics, just the truth. Dissected like an autopsy, precise, cold, brutal. I am not the coffee girl. I am not that desperate intern. I am the woman Richard Martin tried to destroy because he was afraid of this very moment, of me standing here exposing everything. When I finished, Mr. Reddington stepped into the room. Every single person stood up. He didn't need a speech. He only said one line, effective immediately. "Richard Martin is suspended. Anyone involved in concealment, manipulation, or harassment will be subject to internal investigation." Security entered. Richard didn't fight. He didn't scream. He just stood there, face drained, eyes red not from rage, but from knowing he had no exit this time. I stepped out of the room just as dusk settled over the skyline. A different assistant approached, handing me a new ID badge, executive level, full access clearance. I took it without a word. All I could see in my mind was my mother hooked up to oxygen, still at the hospital, still unaware that her daughter had just shifted the balance of power inside one of the most ruthless corporate machines in the country. And I haven't told her yet, because I'm not done. I returned to the hospital just before midnight, soaked from a sudden downpour. My mother was still there, frailer than ever. The dialysis machine pulsed its sad rhythm beside her bed, each beep a reminder that time waits for no one, not even me. I sat by her side, wrapped my hand around hers. "Mom?" They cleared my name. "I've been officially reinstated." She didn't speak, but through the haze of sedation, her lashes trembled. Most people don't realize how victory can come with a loneliness so sharp. It feels like it's cutting you from the inside. I'd told the truth. I'd brought down the man who tried to break me. But deep down, I didn't feel free, because I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, I received a document from legal. On the table sat Richard's disciplinary file, along with a list of individuals labeled potential accomplices or silent witnesses. I scanned the names: Janice, head of HR, Carter, marketing director, the one who once invited me to grab a drink, just the two of us, Julia, Richard's executive assistant, the one who sent me to handle the client at the bar. I remembered each of them not just for what they'd done, but for how they looked at me, like I wasn't human. Now, they'd have to face that same look from the truth. The next week was a whirlwind. The CEO appointed me as acting internal investigator, a temporary title, but with real power, with a green access badge. I could enter any department, view any internal file doors that had once been slammed shut to me now opened on my command. I started digging deleted emails, meeting logs, leave requests that lined up with the night they tried to set me up. A few people resigned immediately like rats fleeing a sinking ship, but no one escapes consequence. In the next company-wide meeting, I stood at the front and presented our preliminary findings. 7 individuals have been suspended. 3 are under legal review. This was a coordinated attempt to eliminate rising talent and preserve the old guard, and most importantly, they did it through sexual coercion, power abuse, and weaponized silence. I paused, letting the final words land. Some faces dropped, a few flushed red, but one pair of eyes caught my attention, Julia's. She wasn't afraid. She was calculating. I knew then she wasn't just a bystander. 12 days after the first exposé, I found an anonymous envelope in my internal mailbox. Watch Julia. She wasn't just an assistant. She arranged for the hotel's cameras to be under maintenance that night. The blood drained from my face, if that was true. She wasn't just an enabler, she engineered the entire setup. And now that Richard had fallen, she was still here. Why I ordered a full audit of IT access logs for the night in question. One line blinked back at me, Julia R. Authorized override access, 21:48 p.m. Exactly 12 minutes before I stepped into the hotel, it hit me like a punch to the gut. Richard couldn't have pulled it off alone. Julia was the mind behind the curtain, the fixer, the one who cleaned the mess, masked the crime, and smiled like it was all beneath her. Polished, professional, above suspicion, the most dangerous kind of enemy. I scheduled a meeting with her not as a peer, but as her investigator. She walked in with a cold smirk, dressed in a cream blazer that clung to her frame, lips red as blood. "Hannah, don't you think you're going a bit overboard? You access the hotel's security system. I have the logs." She chuckled, brushing hair from her shoulder. "And you planning to drag me in front of the board? I don't need to. I'm taking it to the CEO." "Oh, sweetheart." She leaned in with a venomous softness. "You think I haven't been cleaning up the CEO's headaches for years? I was doing this before you even graduated. I didn't blink. I don't care how good you were. You helped a predator come after me, and now you're going to pay for that." For the first time, her smile faltered. She stood, stepped closer, and hissed like a serpent. "You've awakened something you shouldn't have, and it's going to devour you." I said nothing, just watched her heels strike the marble floor as she walked out, each step echoing like a threat. This game wasn't over, not even close. I couldn't sleep that night. Julia's words kept echoing in my mind like a warning bell inside a locked chamber. "You've awakened something you shouldn't have." What exactly was buried beneath all those layers of power? If Richard was the blade that cut me, then Julia had been the one who sharpened it. But someone had handed them that knife in the first place. I made a decision. This wasn't just about me anymore. I expanded the scope of the investigation. I pulled up every internal complaint filed over the last 3 years. Any report that had quietly vanished due to lack of evidence, any audio recording marked as corrupted, any woman who abruptly resigned without explanation, I archived them all in a separate data set. And what I found chilled me to my core. At least 9 cases, 9 women, 9 statements that had been dismissed due to insufficient proof. One of them had emailed legal, claiming she was forced to entertain a client off the books. No one replied. 3 days later, she resigned. Reason given personal matters. I tracked her down on LinkedIn. She was now working as a cashier at a fast food joint. I messaged her, not expecting much. But that night, she replied, "I don't know who you are, but if you're the one who got Richard Martin suspended, then I'm ready to talk." 3 days later, I arranged for her to come in through the side entrance. No calendar invite, no digital trace. Her name was Mia Torres. She looked thinner than her profile photo. her face worn down like someone who'd stopped believing justice was real. We sat in a small meeting room. I didn't record her. I didn't press. I just listened. She told me about the night she was summoned to Richard's hotel room to go over media campaign strategies. When she got there, he said Julia had approved the plan. Before she could react, she was pressured to drink, then blackout. She woke up in a torn dress, phone gone. Julia was already in the room, pretending she'd just arrived looking for Mia. Julia handed her a warning wrapped as a favor, "I'll help you, but in return, you'll resign, and you'll stay quiet." My hands curled into fists beneath the table. Julia hadn't just been an accomplice. She had been running the whole machine. I thanked Mia and had her driven home in a private car. Then I locked myself in my office and began drafting an urgent email to CEO Paul. I attached the files, all 9 cases, security logs showing manipulated access, and Mia's signed statement confirming everything she told me was voluntary and truthful. I only wrote one line in the body: "If Julia walks, then everything we've done is meaningless. I won't stay silent." The next morning, Julia wasn't at her desk. She'd filed for emergency leave. An hour later, all her system access was revoked. Legal notified me Julia was officially under investigation, but I knew she wouldn't vanish quietly. A week later, I found an unmarked envelope on my desk, inside a worn photograph of me and Emily, my sister, standing in front of the Arkin & Cole headquarters. On the back, scribbled in thick black ink: "You weren't the first Emily brought in, and you won't be the last one buried." I froze. Emily's name hadn't appeared in any recent documentation. Only Paul and I knew about our connection. So who was watching me? It hit me then what happened to me wasn't just a vendetta from Richard or Julia. It was part of something bigger. A hidden power structure that had existed long before I arrived. And Emily. She must have known. I reopened her case, the accidental car crash after an internal company party. No investigation, no footage, no follow-up. Back then, she'd been leading the ethics compliance initiative. She had been preparing a report, one that allegedly targeted systemic harassment practices. That report was never submitted. But when I accessed her old employee credentials, revoked but not yet scrubbed, I found a hidden directory in the archives. One file, never sent, never opened. Title: The Circle, Arkin & Cole's Engine of Silent Punishment. I read it word by word, and finally understood why my sister died. Because it wasn't just Richard, it wasn't just Julia. There were others higher, smarter, untouchable. And now I wasn't just avenging myself. I was finishing what Emily started. I was going to expose the entire machine. The room felt colder the moment I pulled the blinds shut, blocking out the last light of day. On my laptop screen was the document my sister never got to send, each page peeled back like decaying flesh from a long-buried corpse, exposing leaks, mold, and rot. The Circle, that's what she called it. The secret core of Arkin & Cole. According to her report, the Circle was a closed inner network of high-ranking executives, functioning like a hidden syndicate that controlled employees through fear, sex, and unchecked authority. Promising female employees, or simply the beautiful ones, were privately mentored, a euphemism for being tested for compliance through off-record tasks. Those who resisted were framed, smeared, or quietly pushed out to preserve their dignity. My sister had stood at the edge of that circle. She chose not to step in, and then she died. I had no patience left for half measures. The next morning, I requested an emergency meeting with CEO Paul. His office, as always, was filled with light and greenery, a serene image that stood in violent contrast to the darkness infesting Arkin & Cole from within. He looked exhausted when I laid the 84-page file on his desk. "Did you know about this?" I asked bluntly. He didn't answer right away, just took a long, heavy breath before speaking. I knew. There were wrong things happening, but I thought they were isolated. I didn't imagine. It was this orchestrated. I locked eyes with him. "Then what are you going to do?" His knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of the desk. "I'll call a special shareholders meeting, but I'll need more. Harder evidence. Especially if some of the people involved are sitting on that board. I knew that already. A single accusation could be spun. A fact without proof was just an opinion. I needed to catch a member of the circle in action. I started trailing Kenneth Breyer, Executive VP of Finance, one of the names my sister had highlighted in her final notes. The man who controlled the budgets for private seminars and expanded HR training categories that had never once been audited. With my access reinstated, I coordinated with a cybersecurity team external, neutral, and brought in under Paul's direct authorization. We installed tracking software on Kenneth's work devices. Within 48 hours, we captured a message thread between him and Julia. Julia. Don't let her see your face. I'll handle the rest. Kenneth. You sure she seems to know more than Emily ever did? Julia. If I have to, I'll give her the same reason to disappear as her sister. I felt the blood rise to my face like fire. They wanted to erase me. I had no more time to play it safe. I forwarded the entire file to a veteran investigative journalist, someone who once collaborated with Emily. I didn't add much. Just one line: if I disappear, you know what to do? I also sent copies to the parent company's legal team in New York, and to CEO Paul this time with the Kenneth-Julia chat attached. This would cause an earthquake, but I didn't care anymore. The special shareholders meeting was scheduled for Friday. No phones, no recording, no assistants, just the core. I walked in with a file thicker than ever before. This time, it included audio recordings, black budget spreadsheets, internal hotel camera screenshots, and a list of 8 survivors willing to testify. Kenneth's face was ash. Julia never showed. She'd vanished earlier that morning. I opened the meeting with one line: I'm the only survivor who ever came back. Silence gripped the room. I walked them through every case, every memo, every buried file. I didn't just present a scandal, I mapped out an organism, a machine, a cancer that had embedded itself into every bone of Arkin and Cole. And when I walked out of that room, I knew one thing for sure: no one would ever call me the coffee girl again, because this time, I hadn't just spoken truth, I'd set the whole damn system on fire. As for Julia, she could run, but I had enough to keep her in hiding for the rest of her life. Kenneth. He was suspended on the spot, and now he faced a pending federal investigation. But I wasn't done, because I knew there was still someone else, one final puppet master sitting higher than all the rest, and I was coming for them next. 2 days after the shareholder meeting, I received a call from a blocked number. A man's voice, low, calm, unnervingly measured. Ms. La. Congratulations on making it this far. But my advice: stop now. I sat up straight, eyes locked on the laptop screen as if I could somehow see him through it. I'm not stopping, not until you tell me who's at the top of the circle. A soft chuckle. Wrong question. The right one is, who's been protecting the circle for the past 10 years? The line went dead before I could respond. No threats, no shouting, just one quiet statement delivered like a whisper in a morgue that chilled me to the bone. That afternoon, I went back to CEO Paul's office. No documents, no files, just one question: is someone above you protecting them? His eyes faltered for a second, just one flicker. Then his jaw tightened. I thought you were smart enough to know. In a multinational conglomerate, the CEO isn't the highest authority. And just like that, I understood. Everything I'd done exposing Julia, bringing down Kenneth, launching internal investigations, it was all movement inside a cage. The person holding the key had yet to show their face. That night, an unusual email landed in my inbox. No name, no subject, just a random string of characters as the sender. Inside was a single PDF, a scan of an executive investment agreement, signed by Emily Liu, co-signed by Thomas W. Greaves, chairman of Arkin Group International. My heart stopped. I searched him immediately. Greaves was a titan, former trade ambassador, Once nominated to the White House's Economic Advisory Board, no one would have imagined he had anything to do with the operational rot at a branch like Arkin and Cole, but the document was clear. He wasn't just aware he placed Emily in the ethics team, and a handwritten note in the margins referenced a private meeting with Richard Martin during an undisclosed visit in 2019. It hit me like a slap. My sister wasn't just an idealist trying to fix things from the inside. She was sent in handpicked, and then left to die in a system silently protected by the highest power of all. I couldn't go public. Not yet. But I could do something else. I found the same lawyer who had once refused to help me this time, with 3 USB drives. One contained the full dossier on the Circle, one contained the audio recordings of Julia and Kenneth, and the third held the investment agreement signed by Thomas Greaves. I slid them across the table. I don't need you to go public. I just need you to protect me when the media storm hits. He studied me for a moment. Eyes unreadable. If you walk this path, there's no turning back. Are you sure? I nodded. I didn't survive this just to turn around. The next night, the interview aired. Independent media, no sponsors, no censorship. I appeared with no disguise, no alias, full face, full name. My name is Hannah Lee. I was sexually targeted, publicly humiliated, and terminated from Arkin and Cole without explanation, but I also exposed a network of harassment, coercion, and blackmail that had gone unchecked for years. And I'm doing this because my sister died protecting women like me. The country erupted. The next day, Arkin scandal trended nationwide. The Department of Justice announced a federal investigation. CNN sent a senior reporter straight to my office for an exclusive. But I didn't need media to know I'd won. I knew the moment a middle-aged janitor clad in the navy uniform of Arkin and Cole paused beside me in the hallway, placed her hand gently on my shoulder, and whispered, "Thank you, for making it so we don't have to bow our heads walking into this place anymore." 1 month later, I was appointed Director of Internal Operations, a role that had never existed before. Julia was officially a federal fugitive. Kenneth was in plea negotiations, trying to avoid prison. And Thomas Greaves, he held a press conference citing health reasons for his immediate retirement, just days after the federal probe launched. I stepped into the executive suite, once the sanctuary of men who thought they were untouchable. I opened the blinds. Sunlight flooded the room in gold. My hand touched the cool wood of the desk, and this time I didn't tremble. I opened my laptop and drafted a new email. To all staff, subject, a new beginning. From the coffee girl, one line. Silence used to protect them. Now, the truth protects us. I hit send and smiled.